Oh man, I'm so glad it took this for me to come back to doing this channel. Uh, just look at the quality of this downgraded game from the Xbox One. I guess what this intro is supposed to be saying is I'm back. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the X-Boy has returned. And with a return like this, we have to cover a game that is worth talking about. So, I'm thinking Final Fantasy? Oh, you! Did you forget you're a 360 channel? You don't get to talk about the majority of the franchise, okay? How many games did you get? We have Final Fantasy XII, 8, 9, 10, and some other ones like NT. Yeah, again, have you got Crystal Chronicles or whatever it is? Jesus. Oh my, if it isn't Ginger Outcast crossover Daniel Danielson. Well, Daniel Danielson, I'm glad you asked. Because today I'm going to be covering Final Fantasy XIII. Are you crazy? You're going to cover Final Fantasy XIII? I mean, don't you have something on the Xbox's arcade section? Pretty sure you have a Final Fantasy title there. Cover that. 13 is so bad that we've completely removed it from all canon in our minds. I'm a Square Enix fan, I know what I'm talking about, okay? Final Fantasy XIII is garbage. Undefendable garbage. I understand your opinion, and I accept your opinion, but I have a counterpoint. Excuse me for 1 minute. Wait, what are you? Why are you doing this? Why are you? No, that's my kidneys. No. Anyway, back onto the video. 2010 marked the release date for Final Fantasy XIII on Xbox 360. Personally, to myself, this was around the time that I was not really as big into gaming as it seems I am now, as back in 2010 you wouldn't really find me playing good quality games. I was playing Resident Evil 5, and I was probably playing a COD game back then as well as Halo 3. But a couple years later, I found myself getting into the Final Fantasy franchise and, of course, loving every second of it. I played 7. I hadn't complete 7 because of my incompetence back then. I played 10. I hadn't complete 10 because of my incompetence, but I did enjoy the hell out of both of them. And then I had my 360 and I got Final Fantasy XIII. And despite what everyone was saying, I enjoyed it. There wasn't really anything wrong with it to me, but then again, I was at a rather young age when I was playing it. And you just need to look at the cutscene quality. This was all from the trailer. And even for then, this is 2010 on a 360. This looks fantastic. I'd really started getting into this sort of game. I played 7 and 10, and again, I loved both games to pieces when I played them. So then I gave 13 a try, and you know, I think JonTron summed it up best.
The game's playing itself, John. The game's playing itself, John! The game's just playing itself, John! The game just... John!
That's right. exploration in the game had been sacrificed, and as you could tell by the mini-map in the top right corner, most of the game was passageways. I mean, there were beautiful things surrounding those passageways, so it clearly wasn't just, ignored and made it look like bland and boring, as people would say the gameplay was. But at the same time, when you make a game like Final Fantasy VII, X, where it allows you to have a lot of open world to explore, yeah, there was some linearity to Final Fantasy X, but at the same time, there was a lot to explore and a lot to see. There were even some things you could do on the side, but I don't know, 13 just didn't have that. Now, instead of talking about story, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about characters. Because, as later on in the video is going to explain, there is a reason why I will not cover story for this game. First character on this to talk about is Lightning. Born as Claire Farron, she is the main protagonist of Final Fantasy XIII, where she seeks to find her younger sister Sarah, but finds herself in a situation that endangers her home of Cocoon, which is where she lives. Yeah. Starting off, she seems very cold, very standoffish. She distances herself from people like Snow. She could seem really stubborn, and at one point would probably not care if any of her partners were left behind. And she basically has one goal in mind, and that is to find Sarah. Which, I mean, if you're the protagonist of a game, I'm pretty sure your main priority should be the protection of everyone around you. You'll play as her for several parts of Final Fantasy XIII, temporarily in 13-2, and the entirety of Lightning Returns. Next on the list is Zaz Katzroy, the middle-aged man with a heart of gold. He helps you around in Final Fantasy XIII, and the most adorable thing about him isn't even him, it's the fact that in his afro, he has Chocobo Pet, which I like to see, and I like to gawk and stare at in awe because it is adorable. Tiny chocobos, huge chocobos, all chocobos, they are adorable and they should be loved unconditionally, even if they do the most egregious things in the world. Moogles, on the other hand, need to be shot on sight. Third on the list is... Snowvaliers. The self-proclaimed hero who tries to save Sarah for his own gain. Okay, so it's love, not his own gain, but, I mean, come on, who the hell likes Snowvaliers unironically? The guy acts before he thinks, he's arrogant from the get-go, thinking that he's friends with just about everyone he sees, and his best quality is being too stubborn to cooperate with. But if I was a Final Fantasy XIII character, I'd distance myself from Snow as much as possible. And in Lightning Returns, it gets even worse. The best way to describe the combat in Final Fantasy XIII is to take 10 and change it up about a tad. At the bottom left corner of the screen, you have the active time battle gauge, or as I like to call it, the Are You Bloody Serious, This Is the Reason I Died bar, as well as the paradigm shift, which changes the properties of character classes and can change the tide of battle from either you doing really good or you dying because you went and made Lightning a medic instead of a Ravager or Commander. Later on in the game, you acquire summons, which I never used, but they are nice looking. Then again, just about in every other Final Fantasy game of their time, summons were basically one of the most beautiful things about the game. It's just a shame that they joined a combat system that could be problematic at best. The paradigm shift in Final Fantasy XIII, 9 times out of 10, would require you to watch the paradigm shift cutscene, and in that time you would still be taking damage from whatever attack was hitting you, so during the paradigm shift you can still die, which is a shame, especially because on the first fight with the Manavist Warmac, you need to switch your paradigm in order to not die from its laser beams. This can be problematic because, again, you still need to watch the cutscene, and if you don't do it by the time the laser blast hits, you're most likely dead. Now, because we didn't cover story, I thought the best way to do is to give the verdict now. Now, as you've probably heard in the video, I've been not too nice to this game. I was really nice to MJR Vengeance. I loved that game, and I still love it now. But Final Fantasy, why talk so negatively about it? And why talk about it at all? Well, my reason's this. RPGs are my all-time favorite genre of games. You could throw an FPS to me and I'll enjoy that for a while, I'll get sick of it. You could throw me an open-world game, I'll play it for a bit, and I'll get sick of it. Hell, I love Resident Evil to bits, but you could throw a game like that to me, I'll play 2 chapters and I'll not touch it for about 2 weeks. But an RPG like Dragon Quest, Dragon Age, Final Fantasy, you throw that to me, and I'll play it for hours. I'll lose track of time, but I'll still play it. Because RPGs to me, when done right, can be as good, if not better, than several other forms of media. A well-made RPG with a really good story and a really good combat system if necessary can really define a game to me, and Final Fantasy has always had a strong place in my heart because it's always let out a creative part of me. I've been able to do really good story writing, I've been able to do really good RPG Maker stuff, because trust me, I've been playing Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy X for a long time, and I've been doing RPG Maker myself trying to throw together a game that I wish happened and existed in the real world. Which it might do. There are a lot of obscure games I've played, like Infinite Undiscovery. I've wanted to give Lost Odyssey a try. I've had several occasions where I could, but I didn't. Mostly because I was playing Final Fantasy X, 7, and 13 at the time. But RPG games will always hold a special place in my heart. RPG Maker, RPG games. If it's a role-playing game, it'll always hold a special place in my heart. Because RPGs have kind of helped me, in a way. They've inspired me to create things that, with just FPSs and survival horror games like Call of Duty, Halo, and Resident Evil, I wouldn't have even come close to making. I've made several stories that I've been really proud of, and I'm glad that I got a chance to get into Final Fantasy when I did. And I hope to see the best of Square Enix some other day. Now, to not have repetition on the channel, sadly, it is going to be a plan that I talk about 13.2 and Lightning Returns at some point. But I want to bring some different genres, different games to the channel. So, the next game hasn't really been thought of, but oh no. I knew the zombie apocalypse would happen if I ended up having this outro drag out too long. Well, join me next week when we get more into the Halloween spirit with Dead Rising. If you'll excuse me, I'm getting out of here.